Mark, about a week ago, it looked as if Pete Hegseth was on very, very shaky ground. How would you grade his probability of confirmation, and what changed in the last week?
Well, Charlie, thanks for having me back. If there's no new information and if he performs well at the hearings, I think his chances are between 9 and 10, 8 or 9 out of 10. I think he's in a very strong position. I think not all the senators who are inclined to oppose him currently have been publicly named. So I think his problem on paper is a little bit broader than people realize. But what's changed is he and his team, including the vice president-elect, have been super smart at changing the terms of the discussion. First of all, no senator thinks it's fair for someone's career to be short-circuited by anonymous allegations. It runs against a lot of what Americans believe in, and senators themselves are subject to a lot of anonymous allegations. So highlighting the fact that every serious allegation against him is based on anonymous allegations, I think has been successful. I think also making this about the president's agenda, about whether woke is going to be removed from the Pentagon, making it about the future, not the past, I think has been effective. And I think efforts to convince these senators that if they vote against Donald Trump's nominees, if they don't give him the kind of deference most presidents get, they could be primaried. As to paraphrase a great Arizonan, paraphrase now, nice Senate seat you got there. It wouldn't be a shame if you lost it.
You know, I've said that once or twice in the last week.
Yeah.
So let me ask you from your reporting, Mark, because I kind of in my own bubble, have those threats of primarying resonated with Senate staff and those that are within the decision making? Has the increased temperature and ferocity from people like myself and even Elon, has that helped move the dial or make a difference?
I think what you guys have done, along with others, including Pete himself, is bought him into January. Okay, I think it's easy to overcalibrate one direction or the other. It's not an overstatement to say that this nomination was close to being done last week.
Yes.
Which is to say, it was Donald Trump was not publicly reported, talked to Governor DeSantis about it, had other names under consideration. But I think what you all have done is move this to a January discussion. Another point, if you're a nominee who's embattled, is to get a hearing, right? Nominees usually survive a hearing and then a floor vote. What causes them to go, and you saw this with Matt Gaetz, is forced out before a hearing. And I think what you all have done is gotten the senators who are wavering, the Republican senators, if I go to an NCAA men's basketball idiom, on the bubble, you've gotten them to say he deserves a hearing, right? It's not fair to take this opportunity away from him, to deny President Trump the person he wants without a hearing where he can face his accusers if they come forward. And getting a hearing freezes the field, right? Now switching from a basketball to a football metaphor. The field is frozen. People aren't going to come out against him, I don't believe, in December. I don't believe anyone will. There's one senator who's been thinking about it, but I believe he's been brushed back. And you all gave him the opportunity to get to this January. Now, in January, I think you could see between now and then more investigative reports, maybe some not based on anonymous sources. I think you could also see some of the people who've been anonymous do television interviews. And depending on the strength of their testimony, that may be powerful. The other thing is, and this I think, Charlie's important, the people in the Republican Senate who have doubts about Pete Hegseth, there's nothing in it for them except they think it's in the public interest to consider whether he's the right person. Despite some of the accusations made against them, they're not taking suitcases full of money. They're not anti-MAGA. They don't want the job themselves. They think the right thing to do is consider whether he should get the job. And I think what would be great for the country is if there was less focus on the personal allegations, not no focus, but less focus, and more focus on some fundamental questions. Running a building with 3 million employees, that's hard. There's nothing on Pete Hegseth's resume to suggest he's able to do that. He needs to have that conversation with the senators. Can he sit in a situation room during a crisis and give the president the very best judgment about how to respond? Again, not much on his resume, although of course he served, that suggests he's prepared for that. So I hope the country and the Senate has that discussion and not the media and tabloid obsession with some accusations which are serious and will be investigated, but don't warrant blotting out the other things.
Excellent reporting. Let's go into some of the other names here. There's increased chatter around RFK and some difficulty he might see in the Senate. Tulsi, they've obviously benefited from the Gates-Hegseth headlines because a lot of this is media and information warfare. Update on those two, Bobby Kennedy and Tulsi Gabbard. And the kind of more surprising one we can get to is how Kash Patel looks like he's likely to kind of glide to confirmation, which really no one saw coming as of right now. So let's go 1, 2, 3.
Right. So I think that all three will be confirmed if there's no new revelations and they perform well at their hearing. Congressional hearings are normally just show trials. They're not on the up and up. There's nothing about good for the public. They're just time for members to get in front of the camera. But I think these hearings will be important. When they give their opening statement, when they answer policy questions, Bobby Kennedy is kind of an interesting case. If you talk to anyone with an opinion about Bobby Kennedy and you press them, there's probably one thing that he's for that they really like, and then there's something he's for that they do not like. And I think he's going to have to figure out how to navigate that, particularly with the senators on the committee, to say, well, you may not like the fact that I've spoken out in favor of abortion rights, or you may not like the fact that I've been a vaccine skeptic. But how about this position, Senator, that you think is a good one? Again, there are accusations against him of all sorts. I think he'll make it, assuming there's nothing new and he performs well. The key to me for Tulsi Gabbard is people like Tom Cotton and Marco Rubio. Both of those guys are extremely well respected on intelligence matters. And of course, Marco Rubio is in line to be Tulsi Gabbard's colleague in the Trump administration if they're both confirmed. If those two guys say the doubts about her on intelligence issues can be set aside, I think she'll be confirmed. And I suspect that they both will. And then finally, on Kash Patel, it's just so not surprising. The tone of the coverage in the dominant media, which doesn't like him and never has, is very hyperbolic, very hysterical. This isn't about winning Democratic Senate votes. He will not. It's about holding a 50 of the 53 Republicans. And I think if you look at the things that people put in these long articles, that are raising alarms about him, there's a few things he said that I think are intemperate, unwise, not in keeping with the best of American traditions. And I think if he explains what he meant and maybe takes some of them back, I don't think there's any problem. People who say he doesn't have the experience are just flat out wrong. People who say he shouldn't be in the job because of some of his views, he's reflecting the views of the man who ran and won. And Donald Trump wasn't shy about expressing views on these issues. He was quite clear about what he wanted. So I don't think it's fair to a president-elect to say, I don't like this guy's views, which happen to match the president-elect, so I'm going to vote him down. So again, barring some new revelation, assuming a good performance during the hearing, which I'm more confident he'll have than the other two, again, I'd expect that he'd be confirmed.
Yeah, I mean, John Bolton came today with his typical, over-the-top statements. He says history won't escape. Senators won't escape history's judgment if they vote to confirm Kash Patel. I'm glad John Bolton is not reaching for the hyperbolic in such statements. So, kind of looking at that across the board, there's going to be confirmation fights, then confirmation schedules. You've been covering this for quite some time, Mark. Usually these aren't that sexy. Usually it's kind of just very procedural. It's kind of just run of the mill. They even do voice votes on some, not all. I think this is going to be different. This might be one of the more intriguing confirmations in history. Is there any parallel to this, of this kind of drama that we've seen in recent memory?
Not like this, because the sheer number of folks who are inspiring controversy and who are known quantities, right? Often you'll have controversies over cabinet officials who could walk down any street USA and not be recognized. Bobby Kennedy, Tulsi Gabbard, even Kash Patel, they've got currency in the popular culture and the wider culture. What's unusual also here is none of these confirmations will rise or fall on the opposition party, right? The Democrats are in the minority. They may vote for some Trump nominees, but any Democrat who's getting votes from Democrats doesn't need those Democratic votes to be confirmed. So this is a universe, depending on who the nominee in question is, of up to 15 Republicans, I think, of the 53, I think there are 15 who might potentially vote no on some, one or more of these nominees. And so the question's just going to be a simple game of math. On any one of these nominees, will 4 or more of those 15 vote no? And I think you saw Tom Cotton, who's a very shrewd guy the other day, who's the number 3 Republican in the incoming Senate, say he expects them all to be confirmed, which means he expects none of them to lose more than 3 of those 15 on any given confirmation vote on the floor. You have to get out of committee before you get a floor vote. Most of these committees shape up decently for these nominees, where they're probably still going to get out of committee, even if the committee's deadlock. So I'd expect for all of us to not be hyperbolic, focus on the issues, and then for the sake of just the pure question of confirmation, that binary question, are there 4 or more votes against from the Republican side or not? And I don't think you're going to see that. I think the Matt Gaetz experience did not embolden these folks so much as chasten them. And they will do their due diligence. And if these nominees can explain their past controversial positions and some of the accusations against them, I do expect them to Senator Cotton is probably right. And that will be the norm. The norm, Donald Trump withdrew 2, never got to a committee hearing, never got to a vote. The rest being confirmed, that's the norm. The relative absence of votes from Democrats, and I think most of these guys and gals will not get Democratic votes, that's unusual. But that's a sign of our times and increased polarization that we see, and of Donald Trump's choosing pretty, what you could call them, bold or controversial picks.